Everyone in Adaeze City thought they knew Adaeze Bello. She was young, beautiful, and rich. Not just rich in the normal way. She was the kind of rich people talked about in taxis, in market stalls, and in hair salons. Some said she owned the tallest glass building in the city center. Some said she could buy 10 houses in one day and not even look at the receipt. Others said she had forgotten what hunger felt like. So when news spread that Adaeze Bello had taken a dirty, tired stranger into her car on a rainy evening, people could not believe it. The man had looked like someone the wind had pushed out of a hard life. His shirt was old and wet. His slippers were nearly torn in two. His beard was rough. He stood by the roadside near a broken bus stop, with nothing but a small black bag in his hand and eyes that looked both proud and deeply tired. At first, her driver had locked the doors. "Madam," he said, peering through the rain, "that man could be trouble." Adaeze had looked through the window. The man was not begging. He was not shouting. He was only standing there, straight-backed, like someone trying very hard not to fall apart in front of strangers. Then he lifted one hand. "Please," he said quietly. "I do not need money. I only need help." Adaeze did not know why those words touched her heart. Maybe it was because he did not sound like a man asking for pity. Maybe it was because there was something calm in his voice, even in that storm. Or maybe it was because she had once known what it meant to need help and have no one stop. "Open the door," she said. The driver turned to her in surprise. "Madam," I said, "open the door." The man got in carefully, as if he did not want to stain the cream leather seats. Rainwater dripped from his sleeves. The inside of the car became very quiet. "What is your name?" Adaeze asked. He hesitated. "Kolechi," he said at last. "And where are you going, Kolechi?" He gave a small, almost bitter smile. "That is a hard question. Tonight, I do not know." Adaeze stared at him. Before she could ask another question, her phone rang. It was her cousin, Ifunanya, calling for the third time. Adaeze nearly ignored it, but something made her answer. "Where are you?" Ifunanya cried. "Have you seen the news?" "What news?" "The whole country is talking about it. The wealthiest man in Nigeria is missing. They say he disappeared during a private trip. His family has offered a huge reward. Everybody is searching for him." Adaeze frowned. "What does that have to do with me?" "Nothing," Ifunanya said, breathing hard. "It is just everywhere. His face is on every channel." Adaeze glanced at the silent man beside her. Then, as lightning flashed across the sky, she saw his face clearly for one sharp second. Her breath caught. No. It could not be. But before she could look again, the man turned toward the dark window, and the city light slid across his tired face like secrets that did not want to be found. That was the night everything began. But long before that rain, before the car, before the whisper that this stranger might be the richest man in the country, there had been another story. A quieter story. The kind that begins in dust, hard work, and stubborn hope. Adaeze Bello did not grow up in wealth. She was born in Umua, a busy town where morning came with the smell of akara frying by the roadside and the sound of radios singing old high-life songs. Her mother sold fabric in the market. Her father repaired bicycles and sometimes old motorcycles. There were seasons when the family ate well, and seasons when soup had more water than fish. Still, her home had love. Her mother used to say, "A child does not become great because money enters the house. A child becomes great because wisdom enters the heart." Adaeze kept those words close. As a girl, she was known for asking questions. She asked why some children stopped school while others went on. She asked why women with bright ideas were laughed at by men with empty pride. She asked why a person with a good heart could still sleep hungry. Sometimes people laughed and said, "This girl wants to inspect the whole world." Maybe they were right. Adaeze studied hard. She sold sachet water after school. She helped her mother count cloth bundles at the market. At night she read by rechargeable lamp when the power went out. When she was older, she won a scholarship to study business in Lagos. Many people in town said she would return proud and changed. She did return changed. But not proud. She returned sharper, stronger, and full of plans. She started with one small logistics business and an old delivery van that coughed like a sick goat. The van broke down often. Workers quit. Clients refused to pay on time. Men in meetings smiled at her face and mocked her behind her back. One man had said, "A fine woman should not worry herself with warehouses and contracts. Just marry well." Adaeze had smiled and replied, "If I marry at all, I will still sign my own contracts." She built slowly. Painfully. One business became 2. Then 3. She invested in storage, transport, food processing, and later technology. Within 10 years, people who once ignored her now stood when she entered a room. Still, wealth did not make her blind. Every month, she paid school fees for children in her old neighborhood. She helped widows start small businesses. She built a clinic in Umua in her mother's name. Some said she did too much for people. Others said kindness was easy when money was plenty. They did not know that Adaeze carried loneliness in silence. Her parents were gone now. Her mother had died first, after a short illness. Her father followed 2 years later, as though his heart had also packed its load and gone after her. Since then, Adaeze had lived in a big house that was clean, beautiful, and often too quiet. There were many people around her. Staff, partners, reporters, friends who smiled too quickly when cameras were near. Yet sometimes, late at night, she sat alone on her balcony and wondered who loved her without counting her money first. That week had been especially hard. Her board members were fighting over a new deal. Social media was full of lies about her company. A man she had once trusted had leaked private information to a rival firm. The newspapers were watching. Investors were asking questions. And on top of it all, her auntie had begun pressing her again about marriage. "You are 32, her auntie had said over lunch. "Do you want to marry your office chair?" Adaeze had laughed, but her heart was tired. So on the evening it happened, she told her driver to take the longer road home. She wanted space. She wanted the city to pass by her window without asking anything from her. That was when the rain started. Heavy. Sudden. Full of drama. The roads flooded fast. Hawkers ran for shelter. Motorcycles swerved. Street dogs hid under kiosks. The world became a blur of water and headlights. Then she saw him. A tall man standing alone by a cracked bus stop, his clothes soaked, his bag hanging from one hand. He looked like a man the world had pressed down but not fully defeated. There was something strange about him. Not magic. Not mystery like in old moonlight tales told by grandparents. It was something more modern, more human. The strange thing was dignity. Even with mud on his trousers, he looked like someone who had once been used to giving orders. Adaeze felt it at once. When he entered the car and gave his name as Kelechi, she noticed more things. His English was careful and polished. His hands, though dirty, were not the hands of a man broken by the street for many years. On one finger was the pale mark of a ring that had recently been removed. He smelled not of alcohol or sweat alone, but of rain, dust, and long travel. "Are you in danger?" she asked quietly. He looked at her for a long moment. "Maybe. Are people looking for you?" A pause. "Yes." Her driver tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Adaeze should have told him to stop the car. She should have taken the safer road. She should have listened to fear. Instead, she heard herself ask, "Did you do something wrong?" The man turned and met her eyes. "No," he said. "But I found out something wrong was done around me." Adaeze felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. Then her phone lit up again. This time, news alerts flashed across the screen one after another. Missing billionaire still unfound. Nationwide search intensifies. Reward offered for information. And just below the headlines was a photo. A clean-shaven man in an expensive suit. Powerful. Famous. Respected. The face on her phone was older, neater, and smiling for cameras. But it was the same face sitting beside her in torn slippers and a wet shirt. Adaeze looked from the phone to the stranger. The stranger looked at the phone too. For one silent moment, neither of them spoke. Then the man closed his eyes and whispered, with pain so deep it barely sounded like a voice at all, "Please do not take me back." At that exact second, 3 black SUVs appeared in the mirror behind them, speeding through the rain. And Adaeze's driver said, in a frightened voice, "Madam, I think those cars are following us." The rain beat harder on the roof of the car. Adaeze turned in her seat and looked through the back window. The 3 black SUVs were still there, cutting through the flooded road with bright white headlights and the kind of speed that made other drivers move aside. Her driver, Musa, swallowed hard. "Madam, should I stop?" "No," Adaeze said at once. Her voice surprised even her. It came out calm, though her heart was pounding. Beside her, the stranger called Kelechi opened his eyes slowly. There was tiredness in them, but also a warning. "If they catch up to this car," he said quietly, "you may be putting yourself in danger." Adaeze frowned. "Who are they?" He gave a weak smile that held no joy. "That is a long story." "We are driving inside that long story already," she said. "So start talking." Musa gave a nervous glance into the mirror. "Madam, with respect, maybe we should go to the police." At this, Kelechi sat up straighter. "No," he said sharply. The force in his voice filled the car. Then, as quickly as it came, it faded. He leaned back again and rubbed one hand over his face. "Forgive me. But not the police." "Not yet." Adaeze studied him. A rich man could pretend to be poor. A poor man could pretend to be rich. But fear had its own language, and this man's fear did not look fake. She lowered her voice. "If I am going to help you, I need the truth." He looked out at the rain-covered city before answering. "My name is not Kelechi," he said. Adaeze did not speak. "My real name is Chibuza Nomoni." Even Musa gasped. That name was known in every corner of the country. Chibuza Nomoni was the chairman of Nomoni Group, the biggest business empire in the land. His companies touched everything from shipping to banking, from telecoms to oil, from farms to hospitals. He was the kind of man newspapers called a living legend. People argued about whether he was 60 or older, because wealth had softened his face but not slowed his reach. And now he was sitting in her car wearing torn slippers. Adaeze's mouth went dry. "Why are you like this?" A bitter laugh escaped him. "Because a man can be rich and still lose everything in one night." The SUVs came closer. Musa gripped the wheel. "Madam, they are gaining." "Take the market road," Adaeze said. "The market road is rough." "Take it." Musa turned sharply, and the car swung into a narrow street lined with closed kiosks, puddles, and stacks of empty crates. Behind them, one SUV missed the turn at first and nearly skidded into a gutter. The other 2 followed. For a few seconds, nobody in the car spoke. Then Chibuza began. 3 days earlier, he said, he had left Abuja without public notice. That was not unusual for him. He sometimes traveled quietly when he needed space from cameras, board members, and family arguments. Officially, he had gone to inspect a private agricultural project outside Benin. In truth, he had gone because he had received information from someone he trusted deeply. A woman named Mama Sod. At the sound of that name, his voice changed. It became softer. She worked in my mother's house when I was a boy, he said. After my mother died, she remained close to me. Not as staff. As family. She is one of the few people who has ever spoken truth to my face. 2 weeks earlier, Mama Sod had called him and asked to see him alone. When he arrived, she told him something that shook him. She believed someone inside his own household was trying to destroy him. Not by stealing from him in small amounts. Not by gossip. By taking full control of his empire. She told him there were unusual document movements inside his companies. Signatures being copied. Accounts being shifted. Old loyal staff being dismissed quietly and replaced with men who answered to one center of power. She warned him that if he ignored it, he might wake up one day and find that his own name sat on a throne built for someone else. At first I thought she was mistaken, Chibuza said. Or afraid. Rich men like me are often surrounded by rumors. I hear 10 lies before breakfast. But you checked, Adaeze said. Yes. He had checked. And what he found chilled him. Key files had been moved without his approval. A new chain of command had begun to form beneath him. His travel schedules were being shared. Security men he did not know had been assigned to his personal routes. Most painful of all, the signs pointed toward people closest to him. His younger brother. His son-in-law. And one board member he had once treated like a second son. Adaeze listened in silence. What did they want? She asked. Chibuza's face darkened. I am old enough now that people have started counting my breaths as if they are coins. Some believe that if a rich man stumbles, he should not get up again. They wanted me removed slowly, cleanly, respectably. Not with blood on the floor. With signatures. With medical reports. With concern on their faces. Musa muttered, God forbid. Chibuza nodded once. That is what I said too. He had pretended not to know. He had smiled at meetings, attended dinners, and said nothing. Then he quietly arranged to meet a retired lawyer who still held original trust documents nobody else could access. If those documents remained safe, the empire could not be stolen fully. But before he reached the meeting place, his convoy had been rerouted by his own security team. That was when he understood the danger was no longer hidden. They told me there was a security threat ahead, he said. They asked me to take another vehicle. I agreed. During the transfer, one of my old drivers, a man named Jato, pulled me aside and whispered, Oga, run. Adaeze leaned closer. Why? Because Jato had overheard enough to know I was not going to a safe house. The car hit a pothole. Rainwater splashed high against the doors. What happened next? Adaeze asked. Jato gave me the bag I am carrying now. He had packed it in secret. Simple clothes. A little cash. A different phone. He said he could delay them for a few minutes, no more. I escaped through the back of a service station and boarded a public bus. Adaeze looked at the black bag near his feet. You left everything. I left life as I knew it. He said it without drama. That made it hurt more. I tried to contact 2 people I thought I could trust, he continued. One number was no longer working. The other person told me not to call again. Since then, I have moved from place to place. Small lodges. Crowded buses. One night in a church hall. Another under a half-built shop. Adaeze stared at him. The wealthiest man in the country, hiding like a hunted goat. And the lawyer, she asked. His jaw tightened. Dead. The word fell heavily into the car. What? I saw the news yesterday morning. Sudden heart attack, they said. Chibuza gave a dry laugh. In this country, sudden things happen very conveniently to the wrong people. No one spoke for a while after that. Outside, the market road opened toward an older district of the city. Yellow streetlights blinked in the rain. Women ran with baskets over their heads. A group of boys pushed a stalled tricycle through muddy water. Adaeze's mind raced. She had spent years learning how power moved. Not just in companies, but in families, politics, friendships, and fear. And she knew one thing well: people who smiled the hardest in daylight could be the most dangerous when money was involved. Still, doubt entered her mind. What if he was lying? What if this was a trap meant to drag her into something dirty and public? But then she looked at him again. He was exhausted. Proud even in ruin. A man holding himself together with the last threads of discipline. Not because he wanted her pity. Because he had no time to break. "Madam," Musa said, "one of the SUVs is beside us." Adaeze turned. He was right. A dark SUV slid up on the left side of the car. Through the wet glass she could make out the shape of a man in front, speaking into a phone. Another sat behind him, staring straight toward their car. Then the SUV moved closer. Too close. "Musa!" Adaeze shouted. He swerved, barely missing a roadside table covered with green plantains. The woman selling them screamed and jumped back. Their car pushed forward, but the road ahead narrowed again. "We cannot outrun them forever," Musa said. Adaeze knew that. Then she saw it. To the right was a small side street leading toward Oja Lane, one of the oldest parts of the city center. It was crowded, tight, and full of buildings packed shoulder to shoulder. Cars could enter, but badly. "Turn there," she said. Musa blinked. "Madam, that road is too narrow. That is why they will hate it." "Turn." Musa did. The car dove into the lane. One mirror almost scraped a wall painted with faded posters. A group of young men carrying sacks shouted and leaped aside. The SUV slowed behind them, struggling to follow cleanly. Adaeze pulled out her phone. "What are you doing?" Chibuza asked. "Thinking." She opened an old contact and hesitated. It belonged to Father Obina, the priest who had once run a youth center in Umua. Years ago, when Adaeze was still climbing, he had helped her hide from men who wanted to force her family off their land. He was wise, discreet, and stubborn in the way good people often are. He now managed a small mission house in Adaeze City. If there was any place in the city where powerful men would not think to look first, maybe it was there. She typed quickly, "I need help. It is urgent. Can I come now?" Almost at once, he replied. "Come." She breathed out. "We are not going to my house," she said. Musa looked relieved. "Good. We are going somewhere safer." Chibuza turned to her slowly. "You believe me?" Adaeze met his eyes. "I believe you are afraid for a reason." He looked down, and for the first time since entering the car, his face softened with something like gratitude. The lane twisted again and opened into a busier road. For a moment, the SUVs disappeared behind a cluster of Danfo buses and delivery trucks. Musa took the chance and sped through a yellow light. Adaeze's phone rang. Unknown number. She nearly ignored it, but something made her answer. A calm male voice spoke. "Good evening, Madam Bello. Drive carefully. The roads are dangerous tonight." Her skin prickled. "Who is this?" A short pause. Then the man said, "You picked up something that does not belong to you." The line went dead. Musa looked at her in horror. "They know you." "Yes," Adaeze said quietly. Chibuza's face hardened with guilt. "I told you this would bring danger." But Adaeze was no longer thinking only about danger. She was thinking about the words the caller had used. Not someone. Something. She turned sharply to Chibuza and pointed at the black bag by his feet. What is inside that bag? He stared at her. For 1 second, 2 seconds, he said nothing. Then, with slow and trembling hands, he placed the bag on his lap and unzipped it. Inside were a change of clothes, a phone, a folded envelope, and one small flash drive wrapped carefully in white handkerchief cloth. Chibuza lifted it and said in a low voice, "This is the one thing they must never get." Before Adaeze could ask why, a loud bang exploded behind them. Musa shouted. The back windshield shattered. And the car began to skid. The car spun hard across the wet road. Musa fought the steering wheel with both hands. Adaeze grabbed the seat in front of her as broken glass flew around them like tiny sharp raindrops. Chibuza held the black bag tightly against his chest. Then, with one last violent shake, the car slammed sideways into a low heap of sand by the roadside and stopped. For a second, no one moved. Rain hammered the roof. A horn blared somewhere behind them. Adaeze lifted her head slowly. Her ears rang. Her heart beat so loudly she could hear it. "Musa," she cried. "I'm here," he groaned from the front seat. "Are you hurt?" "Only small." "Madam, we must move." Chibuza was already looking through what remained of the back windshield. Headlights were cutting through the rain behind them. "They are coming," he said. Musa pushed open his door. "This way. Quickly." They stumbled out into the storm. The rain soaked them in seconds. Cars rushed past on the far side of the road, their drivers too frightened or too busy to stop. Ahead of them, a narrow footpath ran between a row of locked shops and an unfinished building. "Go!" Musa shouted. They ran. Adaeze's sandals slapped against muddy ground. Her dress clung to her legs. Chibuza, though older and tired, moved with surprising strength. He held the bag close as if it were not made of cloth and metal but of life itself. Behind them, doors opened. Men shouted. "This way! Don't let them escape!" Adaeze did not look back. She knew enough about danger to know that fear grew bigger when given a face. The footpath led into a crowded old quarter where buildings stood close together and balconies almost touched above the narrow lane. Even in the rain, life still moved there. A woman pulled a child indoors. A tea seller dragged his bench under shelter. 2 young men under an awning paused their card game to stare. Musa led them through a side gate, across a courtyard, then out through another opening onto a quieter lane. At the far end stood a modest cream-colored building with a simple cross over the door. The mission house. Father Obinna himself opened before they even knocked. He wore a plain brown sweater and old sandals. His face, lined with age and wisdom, did not show shock for more than a second. "Adaeze," he said, stepping aside, "come inside." No questions. No delay. That was the kind of man he was. They entered quickly. The priest locked the door and pulled the curtains closed. The mission house was small but warm. It smelled of tea, old books, and furniture polished by careful hands. Somewhere deeper inside, a generator hummed softly. Father Obinna looked at their wet clothes, their frightened faces, and the blood running in a small line down Musa's cheek. "You brought trouble," he said calmly. "Yes," Adaeze answered. He nodded. "Then let us first make sure trouble does not kill anyone before morning." Within minutes he had towels, dry clothes, hot water, and a first aid box. One elderly woman who helped at the mission, Sister Ngozi, cleaned Musa's cut and brought them steaming cups of ginger tea. Only after they had changed and sat in the small sitting room did Father Obinna fold his hands and say, "Now tell me everything." So they did. Adaeze told the story from the roadside bus stop to the shattered windshield. Chibuza told the deeper story beneath it. Father Obinna listened without interrupting. Only once did he close his eyes, when Chibuza spoke of betrayal within his own family. When the story ended, the room grew quiet. Finally, the priest spoke. There are two matters here. One is survival. The other is truth. If you save your life tonight but lose the truth tomorrow, this danger will only return. Chibuza looked down at the flash drive on the table between them. It seemed so small for something so powerful. This contains copies of transfer plans, account routes, security orders, and recorded conversations, he said. I received it from Jato just before I escaped. He said if anything happened to him, I must not trust paper alone. He had gathered what he could in secret. Can you prove it is genuine? Adaeze asked. Chibuza nodded. Yes. There are codes only I would know. Internal references. Voice recordings. Father Obinna leaned forward. Then you need three things. A witness, a safe channel, and speed. Adaeze's mind was already moving. She thought of journalists, lawyers, judges, ministers. Too many could be bought. Too many could be delayed. But then another thought came. There is one person, she said. Chibuza looked at her. Justice Bamidele Akin, she said. Retired now, but still respected everywhere. He chairs the National Ethics Council. If he receives this directly, in the presence of witnesses, it cannot disappear easily. Father Obinna nodded slowly. A good choice. And one more thing, Adaeze said. We need the story out at the same time. Not rumors. Facts. If the evidence goes in quietly, they may still twist the public against you. Chibuza gave a tired smile. You think like a fighter. I think like someone who built businesses while men smiled and sharpened knives behind their backs. For the first time that night, something brighter than pain entered Chibuza's eyes. Respect. But there was still one more shadow in the room. Can we trust anyone close to you? Adaeze asked. Chibuza thought for a while. Then he said, my daughter. Your daughter? Yes. Amoka. She lives in Enugu and has kept away from the company because she hates the greed around it. She and I have not always agreed, but she is honest. If she comes, she will stand for truth. Adaeze nodded. Call her. He hesitated. If I call from any line they know, she may be washed. Father Obinna reached into a drawer and pulled out a small old phone. Use this. Chibuza dialed with slow fingers. When Amoka answered, his face changed before he even spoke. It softened into something wounded and tender. Amoka, he said, it is me. Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath from the other end. Daddy. I am alive. A sob broke through the line. Adaeze looked away. Some moments were too private to stare at. Chibuza spoke briefly, telling her only what was necessary. Where to come. Who to trust. What not to tell anyone. When the call ended, his hands trembled. I should have trusted her sooner, he said quietly. Father Obinna gave him a long look. Many fathers discover too late that the child they kept at a distance was the one heart not searching their pockets. The night moved slowly after that. At dawn, the rain stopped. The city outside looked washed but restless. News channels were still full of Chibuza's disappearance. Some called it kidnapping. Some called it a political plot. Others said he had vanished because of a hidden illness. No one knew the truth. By mid-morning, Amoka arrived. She was not flashy. She wore a simple navy blouse, low heels, and the serious expression of a woman who had learned to protect herself from disappointment. But when she saw her father alive in the mission house, all her control broke. She ran to him and held him so tightly that even Musa turned his face away. You should have called me, she cried. I know, he said. I know. Adaeze watched them quietly. Wealth could buy many things, but not the time already lost between people. By noon, the plan was set. They would go together to Justice Akin's private residence, not his office. Father Obinna knew one of his aides personally. The flash drive would be delivered directly, in person. At the same time, Adaeze would send copies of key files to two trusted investigative journalists she had once helped during a corruption case. If anyone tried to bury the truth, it would already be moving. The journey felt longer than it was. Every turning seemed dangerous. Every black SUV looked like a threat. But this time they did not travel as frightened prey. They traveled with purpose. Justice Akin received them in a quiet study lined with books. He was an old man with clear eyes and a voice that wasted no words. He listened. He watched part of the recordings. He checked some of the quotes. Then he removed his glasses and said, "This is enough to begin action immediately." For the first time in days, Chibuza let out a full breath. What followed moved faster than even Adaeze expected. By evening, emergency legal orders had been issued. Accounts were frozen. Private security units linked to the plot were detained. One board member tried to flee and was stopped at the airport. Chibuza's brother released a statement claiming innocence, but the evidence had already begun speaking louder than family ties. The biggest shock came that same night. Every station in the country began to show the same image: Chibuza Nomoni, alive, stepping before cameras beside Justice Akin and his daughter Amoka. But one more image spread almost as quickly. Adaeze Bello, standing a little to one side, calm and rain-weary, the woman who had helped a penniless stranger before knowing who he was. People across the country talked about nothing else. Some praised her kindness. Some praised her courage. Some said fate itself had chosen her. 3 days later, when the first storm had settled, Chibuza came to see her at her office. This time he wore one of his famous tailored suits. His shoes shone. His beard was trimmed. The newspapers would have recognized him instantly. Yet when he entered, Adaeze still saw the man from the roadside in the rain. He stood before her desk and smiled. "You saved me," he said. "I helped you," she replied. "No," he said gently. "Many people could have helped. Very few would have." He placed a small carved wooden box on her desk. Inside was not money. Not jewelry. Not some grand key to a hidden mansion. It was a simple old brass compass. Adaeze looked up in surprise. "This belonged to my mother," Chibuza said. "She used to tell me that the greatest wealth is finding the person who still knows not when everybody else is lost. Keep it." Adaeze held the compass carefully. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she smiled. "So it is true." "What is true?" She leaned back and said, "The penniless stranger I helped really was the wealthiest man in the country." Chibuza laughed. A real laugh this time. "Yes," he said. "But for one night, I was poorer than the man selling groundnuts by the road. Because I had money, but no safety. Power, but no trust." Adaeze nodded slowly. That was the lesson the city kept repeating for weeks after the story broke. A person may wear rags and still carry a great name. A person may sit on gold and still be one step from ruin. Wealth is not always what shines in the light. Sometimes it is the hand that opens a door in the rain. Outside, the late afternoon sun rested warmly on Idara City. Traffic moved. Hawkers shouted. Somewhere, children laughed on their way home from school. And though neither Adaeze nor Chibuza knew exactly what the future would bring, both of them understood that their lives had changed on that stormy night for a reason. Because sometimes, in the middle of a modern city full of cameras, contracts, and careful lies, an old truth still remains. Do good when no reward is promised. You never know whose life you are holding. Or how, in helping a stranger, you may uncover the hidden weight of a whole nation.